Members, next we have Representative Long's House File 4026. Representative Long, the chair is going to lay this bill over as well, so we can continue to work on that. But in the meantime, or for now, the chair brings forward House File 4026 before us. And so Representative Long, to your bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Members, we're currently facing a PTSD crisis among our public safety employees. And this bill seeks to help with that crisis in three important ways. First, by supporting PTSD prevention efforts. Second, by providing financial support for local governments to help cover the cost of benefits. And third, by prioritizing in treatment for employees who are struggling with PTSD. On the prevention point, this bill would require employers to provide wellness training or peer support programs for their public safety employees. It would also require the post board to create learning objectives and training to help peace officers identify symptoms of PTSD and coping methods. On the financial support, contingent on local governments providing the required PTSD prevention support I mentioned, the bill would also fully reimburse employers for the cost of the continued health insurance benefits for disabled employees. This state requirement to provide continued health coverage is currently an unfunded mandate for our local governments that would be closed by this bill. Third, the bill would put treatment first. We know that PTSD is a manageable condition for most with the proper treatment. In fact, the evidence shows PTSD can be treated with a high success rate. Certainly, this is not true for everyone, but a shared goal should be providing treatment that helps employees who have invested so much in their career return to work whenever possible. Currently, the default option for many employees struggling with PTSD is to pursue duty disability, leaving the workforce altogether. This is not an optimal outcome for either the employee or the employer. It can stretch the departments thin that the employee is leaving, as well as city and county budgets. And it also results in the employee often not getting the opportunity for treatment to determine if it's possible to return to work. In 2019, there were 118 public safety duty disability applications to the Public Employees Retirement Association, or PERA. In 2020, there were 241 applications. In 2021, there were 307 applications, and more than 80% of these were for PTSD. Our bill would require that individuals seek 32 weeks of treatment before pursuing disability status. This was based on feedback we received from PTSD practitioners about the appropriate length of time of initial treatment. The bill does not take away benefits from injured employees. It would simply allow for at least an attempt at treatment before a decision that an individual is not able to return to employment. PTSD mental health professionals I consulted with also expressed a concern that disability status without treatment may exacerbate symptoms. Individuals may be cut off from their social circles and from their work support networks. And working on this bill, my co-author, Senator Howe, and I spent significant time with the Public Safety Duty Disability Stakeholder Group and other stakeholders seeking feedback on our proposal. I am glad that we were able to gain the support for this proposal from the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, the Association of Minnesota Counties, the League of Minnesota Cities, and the Chiefs of Police Association. I want to express my intent to continue working towards agreement with interested stakeholders. These conversations have been ongoing for months, and I know will continue in earnest. Sometimes a hearing can help us focus attention and further dialogue to get to consensus. We had a letter from the Council on Greater Minnesota Cities saying this bill isn't going far enough. And I know we'll hear testimony, I'm sure, saying that this bill isn't quite getting it right today. But the status quo isn't working well for either employees or employers, and we need to find a better approach. Doing nothing is not an option, and we need to find a solution this session. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll welcome the three testifiers on my bill.
Thank you, Representative Long. And by the way, for the public, the website on the committee page does list letters and statements that are sent in on bills. We try to get them up as quickly as we get them. And so I know that there's a few on this bill, so please avail yourselves of that service as well. With that, Representative Chair Long, we're going to move to your testifiers. We'll begin with D. Love, Mayor of Centerville, and also of the League of Minnesota Cities, currently serving as their president. It's an honor to have you, sir. Before our committee, please state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Well, thank you. My name is D. Love, and as you know, I'm the mayor of the city of Centerville and also the president of the League of Minnesota Cities. I'd like to thank Chair Mariani for this opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. It's an honor and a pleasure of mine. Some of you may know the League of Minnesota Cities represents 837 of your 854 cities. So it really is a member organization that is focused on what's best for cities. And we feel that this issue is paramount to cities. And I'm going to share a few ideas and thoughts in reference to that. First, I'd like to just note, I'm in full support of House File 4026 that Representative Long just talked about. And I want to thank him for authoring this bill, as well as his co-authors, Representatives Mueller, O'Neill, and Hout. The League of Minnesota Cities and the communities that we serve recognize the inherent dangers that are faced by police officers and firefighters in the line of duty. The duties performed by public safety employees sometimes lead to physical and mental injury. So you've heard that today, and we've talked about that in many different aspects already. In recent years, the number of public safety employees seeking duty disability determinations through, and I'm going to say Public Employees Retirement Association, but I'll just go with PARA from now on, and making working compensations claims in the line of duty has accelerated, and particularly so since 2019, when the legislature changed and made the post-traumatic stress disorder a presumptive condition for workers' compensation. Representative Long already shared many of the specific numbers that are related to this and how much it has increased. But I'll add to that just by sharing that more than 80% of those applicants were for PTSD and 93% came from law enforcement employees. So pretty high numbers. I'll also add to that the average age of individuals seeking duty disability retirement is 42. And that's a shocking age, you know, as I learned that fact. So I just thought it was fair to share it with you as well. Many of the employees who receive para-duty disability also are seeking workers' compensation claims. There's an immense human cost to this issue. When we lose a first responder, we lose an integral member of our community. And we have an ethical obligation to help these servants get well and stay well so that they can live a full and healthy life. There's also a financial toll, though, and this financial toll is unsustainable. The cost of duty disability claims are passed back to the cities and the communities and puts a lot of pressure on our budgets. If we don't address this problem, many smaller communities won't be able to afford public safety services and will have to rely on someone else to provide those services for them. Cities cannot solve this challenge on their own. This is a state challenge because public safety is one of the core services offered by government, and cities are by nature a member of the state. If we want to continue to provide public safety services, we need to help at the state level. Together, we can make a real difference because, like I like to often say, we're so much stronger together. The League of Minnesota Cities supports this bill because it accomplishes PTSD prevention, treatment, funding priorities, and it's approved by the League Board of Representatives, which I am here in representation of today. So with that, I just want to say thank you once again for allowing me to speak and have some of your time. And if there are any questions for me later after some of the other speakers, I'll be here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mayor, and appreciate your offer to stick around for questions and for the conversation. Thank you for your leadership on this issue, but also thank you for your service to your community, to our state.
Thank you.
Very well, members. Next we have Jenny Nash of Nisswa, of the city of Nisswa. Ms. Nash, if you can come forward, state your name for the record and give us your testimony, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Jenny Max, and I am the city administrator for the city of Nisswa. I thank the committee for the opportunity to allow me to provide testimony in support of public safety related PTSD reform. I should also mention I am the second vice president of the League of Minnesota Cities Board of Directors, and appreciate being able to provide a couple different perspectives here today. The city of Nisswa, like many communities, has been directly impacted by recent challenges in the public safety profession. The burden of our public safety officials are experiencing is unprecedented, and it's time to engage in meaningful dialogue about PTSD reform. The proposed bill before you today and this hearing are great first steps in doing that. So I thank you again for the opportunity. Nisswa and other cities like us have seen longtime officers file for workers' compensation and PERA duty disability benefits. There are certainly financial impacts with any claim, but especially with this topic, there is that human element that's just as significant. After all, we're in a people business with people providing services to our communities every day. Our people are our greatest asset in providing quality services and making the most of what our communities are all about. And we want to acknowledge and recognize that. The potential impact of those costs for future health insurance benefits for these claims can reach the hundreds of thousands of dollars. For Nisswa, one duty disability claim impact to us was over $350,000 over a 24-year period. That equates to over a 14% levy increase to our taxpayers over that same 24 years and makes it a significant challenge for a community like us that has under 2,000 year-round residents. We also know that there are major traumatic events that have significant impact to a public safety officer's health. It can be those traumatic events as well as seemingly small things on a day-to-day basis that our officers and our public safety officials are seeing day in and day out that can contribute to an untimely end of a career. As employers, we can do better to recognize the warning signs of employee burnout and the impact of traumatic event exposure on the job. And we can do better to provide our public safety staff with the tools and resources to maintain a healthy work-life balance and hopefully continue job satisfaction year over year. In Nisswa, we are working on adding those wellness tools and resources for our staff, including access to qualified mental health professionals at no cost to our employees. We'll continue to build upon these efforts going forward, but we need our state representatives to show your support by providing a better framework for us to use, along with additional financial resources that will make a meaningful impact statewide. The mental health PTSD conversation is challenging and complex, but we can't be so afraid of the unknown that we end up maintaining the status quo. I understand there's apprehension and opposition to this proposed bill, but I urge those opposed to work with the author to address those concerns. There's lots of ways that we can look at this and provide solutions, as we heard with the prior bill, that there could be different methods of therapy or other ways to provide access to resources. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity that we have. We need to have courageous conversations to go someplace we haven't been before. Think of the opportunity to build something truly great, that is meaningful and that helps the people that work for us day in and day out have continued meaningful career opportunities. The city of Nisswa is at the table and ready to do our part in those conversations. I think our public safety officials are worth it. Thank you for your time, and I will stand for questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Max. Appreciate you being with us as well today. Next, we have John Swenson, Lino Lakes. Mr. Swenson, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and provide us with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to members of the Public Safety Committee today. My name is John Swenson, and I'm the Public Safety Director for the City of Lino Lakes.
Welcome, Chief.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House File 4026 today on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association and the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. I would also like to thank Representative Long and Senator Howe for their work on this important legislation. I started my career in public service in 1989, serving in the U.S. Army and Minnesota National Guard as an MP. And in that role, I had the opportunity to serve in Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm in 1991, and then started my public safety career with the city of Minneapolis in 1993 as a police officer and sergeant, which led to opportunities with the city of White Bear Lake as a captain, and then on to my current position here with the city of Lino Lakes as the public safety director, overseeing all police and fire services. During my 33 years of public service, I have seen firsthand the detrimental effects a career as a first responder can have on our brave women and men serving our communities as police officers and firefighters. Collectively, we need to do a better job taking care of our first responders, and this legislation will do just that. Take better care of our first responders. We know that post-traumatic stress disorder is treatable. I'm going to repeat that. This PTSD is treatable. We've heard that from the medical professionals across the board. The current system does not allow our first responders to get the treatment they deserve and need to remain healthy and productive in their personal, family, and professional lives. It is in everyone's best interest to ensure that we provide the resources for our first responders. We can no longer throw our first responders away when they courageously raise their hand to seek assistance for a mental health injury. This legislation will ensure that we take the needed steps to assist our first responders experiencing PTSD by first providing resources and training in the hopes of improving wellness and preventing these types of injuries. Second, ensure that we provide treatment to those that sustain a mental health injury. Third, ensuring that the employees that are being treated for mental health injuries remain financially whole. And fourth, providing funding for communities to care for their first responders and their families. This legislation will not only assist our first responders, it will serve all Minnesotans by ensuring our first responders remain healthy and have an opportunity to continue to serve our communities at a time when recruiting and retaining police officers and firefighters is difficult at best. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity and will stand for any questions that you might have.
Very well. Thank you, Chief Swenson. If you could stand by, we'd appreciate it. Representative Long, that concludes your testifiers. And now there's several folks from the public that wishes to offer testimony. So we'll hear from them and then we'll move toward question and answer. We'll begin with Lindsay Rowland. Lindsay Rowland.
Mr. Chair, Joel, you want to speak?
Hello, welcome.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Joel Carlson on behalf of the Minnesota Association for Justice.
Joel, you don't look like Lindsay Rowland.
I know but Lindsay and I have a routine and I was supposed to tee it up for her. So I'll be very brief, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome to the committee.
Joel Carlson, I represent the Minnesota Association for Justice, and a significant number of our members represent employees who are injured in the workplace with their workers' compensation claims. And I can say that Representative Long, and we had a chance to discuss this with him this morning, the bill has raised the collective blood pressure of our association, and we want you to know that we would like you to hear what the concerns are that we have. I'm going to let Lindsay deal with the specifics of the bill, but I can tell you that the experience of our members representing the employees in these situations is very different from what the employers are suggesting, and we urge caution, and as drafted, we would urge a no vote on this proposal. I understand it's being laid over, but we're happy to continue the conversation, but this is a tough pill for people that are facing workplace PTSD. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. It's important to get everybody at the table talking to each other. So glad that we're part of that process. So then I take it, Ms. Rowland, that I can turn to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate you hearing my testimony today in opposition of House Bill 4026. As I've mentioned, my name is Lindsay Rowland. I'm a partner at Muser, Yackley & Rowland, a law firm that represents 3 of every 4 first responders who apply for workers' compensation and disability pension benefits due to PTSD. I am here today representing the Minnesota Association for Justice, an organization of trial lawyers dedicated to protecting the rights of injured workers. To begin, I want to reiterate that we all want first responders who are struggling with PTSD to get treatment and return to work. However, this bill does not accomplish those goals. It does the opposite. First, nearly 100% of workers' compensation claims for PTSD are initially denied. Contrary to statements by the League of Minnesota Cities and others, the 2019 PTSD presumption has been effectively meaningless. Employers continue to deny nearly 100% of workers' compensation claims for PTSD. As a result, first responders with PTSD have limited access to treatment. This bill does not change that. Second, the 2019 PTSD presumption for workers' compensation did not lead to an increase in disability pension claims. Workers' compensation and para-disability pension claims are completely different areas of law with different legal standards and different decision makers. The number of disability pension claims was relatively unchanged from before as compared to after the 2019 PTSD presumption took effect. The number of disability pension claims increased significantly, however, following the 2020 riots. Importantly, those claims are now decreasing. Third, first responders are already applying for workers' compensation benefits and engaging in treatment before applying for disability pension benefits. In fact, first responders are required to get a workers' compensation decision on compensability before applying for disability pension benefits. And most first responders engage in months of mental health treatment before their disability pension benefits are approved. The problem is not that first responders with PTSD are bypassing workers' compensation, because they're not. And it's not that they are not seeking treatment, because they are. Requiring employers to provide PTSD treatment to first responders with accepted workers' compensation claims provides no change to the status quo, because nearly 100% of those claims are initially denied. To conclude, the Minnesota Association for Justice supports the goals of helping first responders treat for PTSD and return to work, but this bill does not accomplish these goals. For these reasons, the Minnesota Association for Justice opposes House Bill 4026.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Rowland, and hopefully you can stick around as well.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Next, we have Chris Stewart of Heroes Helping Heroes. Welcome to the committee. Mr. Stewart, please state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chris Stewart. I was the rank and file. I was the boots on the ground. You want to know what it's like answering 911 calls? You ask me. You want to know what it's like watching someone take his or her last breath? You ask me. You want to know what it's like to tell a mother that you'll never see her son or daughter again? You ask me. You want to know what it's like to develop PTSD as a result of your job? Ask me. You want to know what it's like to have to decide whether your family would be better off with you 6 feet under? Ask me. Ask me what it's like to go through or go without income or insurance while we have a baby on the way. To feel broken, take a future or to face a future that is uncertain at best. To have your wife tell you she walks into the house before your 2-year-old daughter because she doesn't know whether you'll be dead or alive in the living room. Ask me how effective employee assistance programs are, or how much we trust people when our livelihood is hanging in the balance. You probably won't, and that's okay. But I represent the men and women whose lives will be changed if this bill is passed. I am a retired Minneapolis police sergeant, and after 14 plus years as being a police officer, I was diagnosed with PTSD in June of 2020. Following the weeks of the riots, which took place in Minneapolis. During my time with Minneapolis, I spent the majority of my time in North Minneapolis's 4th Precinct. I also spent time in our plainclothes ATF weapons unit investigations. I spent time with our FBI Safe Streets unit, and also I spent time 2 years on our SWAT team. I am now founder and president of Heroes Helping Heroes. During my time with Minneapolis, I responded to thousands of calls for service, interacted with hundreds of thousands of individuals, and on a daily basis, dealt with calls and situations that most people's nightmares are only made of. I've seen the worst of mankind and what I can only describe as pure evil. I've seen hundreds of dead bodies that have ranged from a result of gang shootings, fatal car accidents, to suicides, and to the worst of them all, the death of children at the hands of their parents. I've dealt with bloodied females who have been assaulted as a result of domestic abuse, abandoned and malnourished children, and victims of sex trafficking and rape, to name a few. I've been shot at and physically assaulted, not because of who I am as a person, but because of the uniform I wear and what it represents. After years and years of seeing this horrific and god-awful things, sooner or later they catch up to you mentally. Unfortunately, they did for me in June of 2020 when I was diagnosed with PTSD. Leaving a profession that I loved in this way was the most difficult thing I'd ever had to do in my life. My department failed to acknowledge PTSD before this, and they failed to set up meaningful programs, peer support, or other means of coping with traumatic events that we as first responders deal with every single day. When I left the department, I felt as though I had been isolated, abandoned, demonized, and alone. That is why I created Heroes Helping Heroes. Heroes Helping Heroes is a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to helping all first responders, police, fire, and EMS who are suffering from mental health issues, specifically PTSD. We provide our members the opportunity to participate in different events with one another, whether it's hunting, fishing, camping, woodworking, or anything else that they want to do. And we pay for all costs associated with these events. It's an opportunity for our first responders to get out and to help them cope with the traumatic things that they see and deal with on a daily basis. I know firsthand about the workman's comp process and para. It is a very thorough process and has many checks and balances. It is not a walk in the park like the League of Minnesota Cities would have you believe. And unfortunately, what the League would like you to believe is that most of us do not seek therapy before, during, or after treatment, but this is completely false. Many of us do, and we continue it throughout the entire para process and afterwards. I started my therapy in December of 2019. I was officially diagnosed with PTSD by 2 therapists and a medical doctor in June of 2020, following the horrific riots in Minneapolis. It was at this time I went on family leave. I was a threat to myself and to others, and I was in no position to continue my profession as a police officer. At that time, I'd rather have eaten my own gun than work another day in that city. I filed for para application August of 2020. Again, another myth that the League would have you believe is that all these para applications go through being rubber stamped. Let me assure you, this is not the case. All applications are reviewed by an independent third party, and in this case, MMRO, which is an organization based out of Michigan. Per para guidelines, 50% of all duty disability applications must go further and be evaluated by an independent evaluation. I do not personally understand how this is legal. Either an applicant meets the criteria set forth in state set forth in statute or they don't. Those in question should be pulled and are pulled for additional evaluations. There is no magical 50% of applications that fail to meet the criteria set forth in state statute. Instead, Para has spent well over $1 million, and now their approval rate for duty disability applications now sit at 100%, if I'm not mistaken. My Para application was one of those that was pulled for further evaluation in December. I had to go through this IPE process just before Christmas of 2020. At this time, my psychiatrist joined the evaluation with Dr. Gratzer. Some of you may have heard my testimony that I gave in front of the Senate Oversight Committee in regards to Para and Dr. Gratzer and how I was treated during this process. It caused me more harm than good mentally. After my testimony, the next day, Para fired Dr. Gratzer due to his negligence and treatment of those that he had seen. I was finally approved for para duty disability at the end of February 2020. This process took a grueling 7 months to para and 9 months overall. The workman's compensation process took 13 months overall before a settlement was agreed, and 15 months until I received my final paycheck from the city of Minneapolis. It was in part due to a federal discrimination lawsuit that I had out against the city at the same time. Luckily, I had enough vacation and sick time built up to continue to collect a paycheck while on family leave and while going through the para application process until the week of Christmas 2020. I was able to build up this time because I love my job and hardly ever use any vacation or sick time. It was also at this time around Christmas when I lost my health insurance at an extremely difficult time. My wife happened to be 7 months pregnant. It is my understanding that most departments do not let their employees accrue that much vacation and sick time, so many are forced to go without pay and health insurance for several months. Let's talk about some alarming stats. According to the Department of Justice, 15% of police officers suffer from PTSD, while 20% of fire and EMS combined suffer from PTSD. This number is vastly underestimated because it relies on self-reporting. Compare those numbers to the general population, where 3.5% suffer from PTSD. It is estimated that police officers are 60% more likely to commit suicide than that of any other profession, second to only that of our brave military members, which is extremely sad and depressing. 171 cops committed suicide in 2021, and so far 32 have already this year, not including fire and EMS. That equates out to a first responder taking his or her own life every 1.5 days. We in Minnesota have lost 2 first responders in the last month alone because they could no longer suffer with the pain they were going through on a daily basis, and they took their own lives. I believe that this is a horrific PTSD bill, and here's why. This bill threatens first responders and puts them in a place where they have to choose between their job and income over the before their personal health, well-being, and their family. Under this proposed bill, it would force those suffering from PTSD to complete the workman's comp process before applying for para-duty disability. This could take years if each case goes through the legal process and before an individual could file for para and collect a duty disability paycheck. And what does the league exactly mean by admitted claim in this bill? Again, this process could and will take years to complete and will force cops and firefighters to go into bankruptcy. For example, the league has been fighting a claim on one of my members in our organization for 3.5 years, and they still refuse to admit the claim, even though he has been approved by para for duty disability. The league has denied every mental health and PTSD claim this past year, 2021. They're nothing more than an insurance company looking to save money. How many of you representatives sitting on this committee have had an unpleasant time making a claim with an insurance company? This is no different, and in fact, it's even worse because it is dealing with people's lives. When most people become cops, they're immediately or soon after isolated from their friends and family who are not in this profession, because cops and firefighters are forced to work odd, long hours, usually overnights and weekends and on holidays, so they miss out on many activities and are soon isolated from the outside world as a whole. Many cops are one-income families due to the odd hours and weekends worked. Often their spouses are forced to take low-paying jobs to work around these crazy schedules and to care after their families. Many cops have talked about contemplating suicide for a means of financial funding for their families. These social and financial reasons are one of many reasons that keeps cops from seeking help in the first place. They are too worried about losing their jobs and everything they have worked so hard for. I believe this bill would force cops back into the closet regarding PTSD, and they would not get the help needed. This bill would demonize, isolate, belittle, dehumanize those cops and firefighters who wish to seek help by their administrators. This bill would also put a huge liability on the cities and the departments who put cops back on the streets during and after seeking treatment for mental health and PTSD. Can you imagine the outcry from the public and politicians if a cop who was seeking mental health treatment got into a critical incident, no matter how justified that shooting was? Or how about the situation, which is much more likely, that a police officer uses inappropriate force or force that is deemed unreasonable by the police administration or politicians? The civil and criminal ramifications on this would be unprecedented. Or how about the civil, criminal, and discipline ramifications of a supervisor who allowed his cop to go back to the streets after being cleared for duty, even though the supervisor may have had doubts of this officer's ability to do his or her job to the fullest capacity? Where does the buck stop? Would any of you representatives want a police officer to show up on a hostile and volatile situation you're involved with, where the officer isn't in the right state of mind? I doubt it. Now let me kibosh a few myths that have been implied by the League of Minnesota Cities.
Mr. Stewart, we have 5 minutes left. I do want to hear, I think we all do, and I want to respect your testimony, absolutely. But I want to make sure that we hear from at least one other testifier so they don't have to come back later at 6 o'clock. So if you could wrap up, that'd be terrific. And you're also welcome to come back at 6 o'clock when we come back from our recess as well. So if you want to wrap up now, that would be helpful. And then we can continue the conversation with you later as well, if you so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a whole, I completely oppose this bill. I think it's a ludicrous bill. It is opposed by nearly every police organization that protects the men and women on the ground. As you can see, it is only supported by the police administrators that have not answered a police call or 911 call in years, if not decades. This is a completely unreasonable bill, and this is why I request that you vote no on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We appreciate your testimony and your presence with us here today. I'm going to call on Mr. Ed Reynoso, Director of the Political and Legislative Affairs of Teamsters Local 320. We do have 2 other testifiers who are part of the coalition that Mr. Carlson referenced earlier. So I want to make sure we also hear from someone who's not a part of that coalition. And so, Mr. Reynoso, if you could come forward and give us your name and for the record, give us your testimony, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Edward Reynoso. I'm the Political and Legislative Director for Teamsters Local 320. We represent around 1,400 law enforcement officers throughout the state and corrections officers. And, you know, I've obviously here to testify in opposition to House File 4026. Totally respect the goals on trying to reach a compromise on some of these issues. But I just got to first off say that, we have a process now that's in place. It's been established for decades, and that's the Workers' Comp Advisory Council. The fact is that this is a thought out process. There are 12 voting members. We have 6 labor and 6 Minnesota businesses that represent the rules and guidelines and the laws pertaining to Chapter 176. Historically, any workers' comp bill that has come to the legislature has been vetted through this process. Now, as a member, myself as a Workers' Comp Advisory Council member for the last 15 years, this issue has not been vetted, or at the absolute minimum, even been discussed. Not one conversation has taken place with regards to this bill. We believe that this legislation gets in between the doctor and the injured worker by creating mandates on the type of treatment, process of treatment, and then putting in question someone's good faith participation. This flies in the face of questioning an injured worker's validity of their injury. Mr. Stewart couldn't have said it better. The reality is while we respect Representative Long's position in attempting to address some of these issues pertaining to PTSD, we just don't believe that this is the correct direction to help these injured workers. We ask that this committee take a step back and consider allowing the process, the vetting process to go through that has worked in many other situations, and that this bill be sent to the Workers' Comp Advisory Council for their review, for their vetting, and to have true input from the experts with regards to workers' comp, injured workers, and the business community. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that you consider this and the committee considers this. This is a true way for the issue to get vetted, be flushed out, and for both sides, both from labor and the business communities, to bring forward concerns that they may have with regards to this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Reynoso. As always, you're welcome in this committee, so it's good to see you again as well.
Likewise, thank you.
Members, we are unfortunately up against our time limit for this part of the hearing. I will be recessing us. We will return at 6 o'clock. Please know that the chair will make every effort to get back to this bill. I'm going to lay this over in a second. Get back to this bill this evening if we have time at the end of our other bills. Certainly, I had hoped for more debate, and apparently more debate may well be warranted here. It sounds like.
Mr. Chair.
I do know that Representative Long has signaled to me his intent to continue to work with all the stakeholders present. So that certainly would give us the time to be able to do that. Representative Sarah, very quickly, because I'm going to call on Representative Long.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't quite get Mr. Reynoso in his testimony.
I'm sorry. Say again, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could Mr. Reynoso just repeat who he was representing in this testimony?
Mr. Reynoso is here as the Director of Political and Legislative Affairs of Teamsters Local 320.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lucero. Representative Long, very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand we'll continue conversations on this bill, which I think is extremely important. And I think we all share the same goals, which is we want officers to get the help they need. We want them to get treatment, and we want them to return to work. And that's not happening right now. We have hundreds of officers who are not getting treatment and are not returning to work, not even given the option of getting treatment so we can determine if they're able to return to work. And that's what this bill is seeking to do. And I certainly look forward to continuing to work with stakeholders to try to achieve that goal.
And Representative Long, hopefully we'll have time this evening to hear from the remainder of the testifiers, and hopefully have some time to discuss as well, but I think you heard my explanation of how I want to proceed, which is I'm going to hear the other bills first, and if there's time at the end, we'll come back to this bill. In the meantime, well, at least at the present moment, then the chair lays over House File 4026.